small cup of coffee with a shake in Kuwait, and I only drank it because I didn't want to be rude, and it tasted horrendous. It was so bitter.
Wow, man. I had 3 cups this morning. I like run and die. I live and die on coffee every day.
Yeah, I can only imagine, like, the first time I ever had an energy drink, like one of those Monster energy drinks, I wanted to eat the face off my wife. I thought I was taking bath salts. And so I can only imagine if I were to drink a cup of coffee, what would happen. So
But the weirdest coffee usage I've heard was Sean Waltman told me he puts like ground coffee in his workout drinks or whatever, his like shakes.
Really?
Yeah, it gives him energy, and then it makes him want to expel his bowels after working out more, and it's like a total win, he says, for him.
I've never had a problem expelling my bowels, and I'm, again, if I were to drink coffee, God only knows, I'd be like probably like a sprinkler out in the yard, and just painting the walls.
That's disgusting, Al.
I know.
I would typically cut all this because I didn't do the formal intro, but do you want me to include that in this interview?
You can. It's fine. I don't mind. It's,
Okay, cool. Well, let's just do it then. Yeah,
Okay.
that was a poop joke there for everybody that was tuning in. We were talking about how Al's never drank coffee, and
Right.
then we had the poop joke. But yes, of course, right now my guest at this time, multi-time WWE champion, who is now the owner and proprietor of Ohio Valley Wrestling. It's Al Snow. Al, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you, and I apologize for the delay. Like I said, I've got about 4 interviews today for some reason, so
Yeah.
Pretty popular on the old interview circuit.
Well, you sent out this press release yesterday, and I know I've chatted with you. I think it's been maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago that we talked about you taking on OVW here.
Yeah.
We got this press release here about how OVW, Gladiator Sports Network, have come to a deal with Film Volt, and you guys are getting more distribution. So tell me a little bit about this. What's the latest here going on?
Well, what we did was we just recently signed a deal with the YTA network. YTA network is it's not a prominent, but it's a national network here in the United States, and our television show airs in 44 million homes nationwide, and which is a big deal for us, to have that kind of exposure on it. They're both a broadcast and a cable network. And they have their own streaming platform as well. But then I met with the people from Film Volt. They're in the UK,
okay.
And they wanted to handle potential distribution and marketing of the television show. So we signed a multi-year deal with them, and they have developed a Roku channel right now that is accessible in the United States, Canada, Germany, several South American countries, several more Eastern European countries, the UK. As of Friday, as of tomorrow, we will be available in Japan, China, and Israel.
Wow.
And then next week, we'll be working on to the third stage where we'll be available in even more international markets. But we have our own Roku channel through them. We have also we'll be on Amazon Prime, Amazon Fire, Samsung, and also Apple TV come the winter. So, for us, it's a very big deal because, of course, that expands our reach and expands our platform, and gives us an opportunity to create a massive audience for our product, which are our wrestlers, and it increases the opportunities for those wrestlers, who are here performing. Now it's not, we've been, so that I can make this clear, we've been on TV, on broadcast TV now for probably over 30 years. A year ago, we had our 1,000th consecutive episode of television. So the only other company that's close is basically WWE.
Yeah.
And I think Raw only beats us by a little as far as consecutive episodes right now of television. But if you were here, it was just on a regional basis. It was just in the local market, the regional market, that you were on TV and you had that TV presence and that exposure. But now I'm trying to create a platform that you'll have both a national and international exposure. So it creates opportunities for the wrestlers themselves, that now they're building an audience, let's say in Israel. And if there's a promoter in Israel, which there are, and they realize that one of the stars in OVW has an audience already developed and they are already an attraction and a draw, it gives them a chance to go to Israel or other countries and perform now that they wouldn't have normally had.
Yeah, and so that's how you view OVW then, I take it. I mean, do you see it as a full-on promotion, or is it more of a launching pad for people to get noticed and maybe go get chances elsewhere?
It's everything. I've wanted to create a platform that gives both newcomers a place to truly be trained to a certain standard. Because unfortunately, with the proliferation of wrestling schools that are out there, there are no standards anymore.
Yeah.
And that was what motivated me to buy OVW in the first place, was my frustration and my aggravation being on a lot of these independent shows. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everybody has to look like a bodybuilder or an underwear model, because they don't.
Right.
Some of the beauty of professional wrestling is that it has to have something that appeals to everyone in every way.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be able to not only carry yourself in a manner that makes an audience believe that you can make your living in a competitive, combative situation, but you've got to be trained properly to be able to portray that from start to finish, to help allow an audience to immerse themselves in that illusion.
Yeah.
And these days, people just aren't. I mean, they just we've all become such whores that, just being blunt, but if a person shows up and they have the money, it's come on in, and there should be a certain standard, and it should be hard to be a professional wrestler, to achieve it, to become it. And I was very frustrated because at the time I'd taken it as a personal crusade to I approached the Oklahoma State Boxing Wrestling Commission, the Louisiana, the Maryland, and then I personally went and approached the Kentucky Boxing Wrestling Commission, because I thought it was an insult, and I thought it was absurd that my wife, who's a licensed masseuse, whether you're licensed masseuse in any state in the union, or a beautician or a barber or a mortician, you have to go to a state accredited school. You have to be taught by a state accredited teacher, have to complete a certain number of state required hours of training. Then you have to go through a certain period of residency training before you can even take a test to get a license.
Yeah.
In any state that has a commission that they claim they're doing for the betterment of the sport, you just take a physical and pay your money, and ta-da, you're a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
There's no standards as far as trainers or training facilities, and that's why it took me a year and a half, but we're the only training school, the only wrestling school in the world that we are actually accredited by the State Office of Proprietary Education. They oversee all secondary education by trade schools, universities, colleges. They oversee all of that. So, it took a lot. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of money to become that. But, we now have that accreditation. So, I wanted to provide a place that people could feel confident, young men and women could feel confident that they're going to not just get trained, and we're going to just show you how to throw yourself on the mat and a couple holds and hit the ropes, and hey, you can get in the ring next month. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn to be a professional, and in every way. And we're going to help you with, not only your education within the ring, but outside the ring, so that when the time comes, not if, because it's going to happen, your in-ring career ends, you'll have skills that you could still be an asset within the entertainment or wrestling business. We're going to give you those skills, and we're on top of that, we're going to work with you on your diet, and we're going to work with you on your nutrition. We're going to work with you on your physical training. We're not just going to leave it to happenstance that you just go to the gym and just do yourself. We're going to actually use real strength coaches, you know, that are professionals and are trained in making you an athlete. You know, and we're going to use quantifiable metrics to gauge your physical ability, to allow you to know where you start. And then when you come to me and say, hey, what do I need to work on? Here's where your score is at, and here's where we needed to get it, so you can perform at the level you need to perform at, so that if you get an opportunity, let's say with AEW or WWE or any other 3 letters
Yeah.
on a major platform, you're going to be able to take the best chance at that opportunity that you can, because you're only going to get one shot at a first impression.
Yeah. And
And we're going to make sure you do everything you can to make the most of it.
And with all that, Al, I mean, it sounds like you and the Performance Center are like sharing notes, right? Like a lot of the stuff you're describing is what I hear that they are doing as well, you know, which is, you know,
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And I think that's because, you know, don't believe the lie that everyone propagates now of, you know, the wrestling business changed. It's changed. We've reinvented the wheel. No, you haven't. It's still round. It's not 6-sided, or it's not octagonal. It's not hexagonal. You're Dilbert. You're just making up excuses to justify. You know, you're now claiming that we're no longer selling what we've sold for literally now a century,
Right.
which is the finish. We're only selling the intent, okay? And we're selling who the performer is. Those are the 2 definite things we're selling that draw an audience, is who and why,
Yeah.
not what you do. Okay, that's where I may, to a degree, maybe differ from the Performance Center, because I focus solely on teaching these people to sell who and why, because I know that's the thing that's very intrinsic to making them truly a star.
Okay.
But they have to have the basic fundamentals of timing, footwork, and distance properly done. They need to be able to have the physical capabilities, because that was the thing that upset me. Was not how people on the independents aesthetically looked. It was the fact that I would see people that were not taking it seriously, weren't approaching it as a professional, and were literally going in the ring and were in such poor physical condition that they were now a danger to themselves and their opponent.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, every time you go in that ring, there is a good chance that you may get injured. And the odds of you suffering a life-altering or ending injury have exponentially went up over the years, because you know, that was the real thing that motivated me. It was a young man out in Oklahoma, it's a commission-controlled state, poorly trained, with another person poorly trained, takes a spine buster, hits back of his head, has brain swelling, edema. He's in the hospital for several days in a coma, and they pull the plug. He dies.
Wow.
You know, and that
Yeah.
has been happening on a greater and greater amount of time every year. It's been getting worse. The number of people that have either suffered some life-altering injury, you know, before I got here, a young man, one of the guys that wrestles, because I had tried to get him to stop going to work for some of these other independent promotions, because out of business, it's just not fair. I'm putting you on TV, and now these guys are trying to capitalize on that. He decides he's going to go wrestle for one of those companies, and works with a guy that's not trained at all. The guy goes and tries to do some move, and the guy breaks his own neck. You know,
Yeah.
and it happens more and more and more these days,
Yeah.
because you know, people are not being taught right, and I take great pride in trying to ensure that I'd rather overtrain people and rather teach them too much to where they're overprepared than to just put them out there willy-nilly and take a responsibility of them being potentially injured and for the rest of their lives. You know, it just really, it's very disturbing, and it's insulting. It's insulting to the business. It's insulting to your opponent to be in that kind of condition and that kind of shape. You know, if you're really wanting to do this, you know, and even if you can only do it, or if you only aspire to do it on a weekend basis or something,
Yeah.
don't treat it as a joke. Don't treat it as a hobby. Treat it as what it is, as a profession, and that you're going to be a professional who represents the business in the best possible way. You know, and that's a very much a passion of mine, and I want to make sure that happens. So that was why it motivated me to buy OVW, and I've tried to create an environment for newcomers to have that platform that can take them to that next level.
Yeah.
I have no problem with them coming here, developing, growing, and then leaving us. But the best conversation I can ever have with one of these people is them come in and go, I can't come back next week. I got to go to WWE. Well, congratulations. Go run and make as much as you can while you can, and you're always welcome back. But I also want this to be a place where people that have been, let's say, in Impact or WWE or Ring of Honor or wherever can come and reinvent themselves, make a living just being a professional wrestler, not doing anything else. You won't make as much as you would in WWE, of course. It's not as big a platform. It's not as prominent, and we don't have the resources. But you can make a living, and you can reinvent yourself and potentially recreate another product, another attraction that then WWE goes, hey, you know what? Let's bring him back. We already know who he is. We've already dealt with him, and he's a whole new package now. We can repackage him and resell him again. He can have another run. That does and has always happened. It's unfortunate today that these young men and women, they get in with the sole aspiration of, I want to get signed by WWE. Nothing else. I just want to get signed with WWE. That's the only way that I will know that I'm successful. And then once they're signed with WWE, when their run ends, because it always does, you always have a run, no matter, even back in the days when you were in the territories, you had a run and you'd go to a different territory. But now it's like the minute they get released from WWE, well, my career's over. I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're not. You're only done when you say you're done. If you use that time on that amazing platform that WWE provides these people, you can have a career for years later. I mean, I haven't been on TV for God knows how long, and I've had an incredible career and still been able to work all over the world and different companies. Have I been with WWE? No, but I've still been able to do this for a living and nothing else, and I've been amazingly blessed, but all because of that exposure that I had with WWE. And I'm hoping that this will give that to a certain degree on a different level for performers as well.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to ask you about too is the style. Like, I know I know you have a lot of opinions on the way wrestling is presented. I've noticed recently, and tell me if I'm wrong or if this doesn't resonate with you, but it does seem like there's a move back to a more grappling-based style right now, at least in North America. I look at what like Thatcher's doing. And
it should be. It should be.
Yeah.
It should be, because, again, and I can't emphasize this enough, we never have sold anything other than just the finish. Okay, so let's just take, and this will be very brief, okay, but the two most predominant ways to win a wrestling match are pinfall and submission. 99.9999% of the time, where are you going to win those? On the mat, okay?
Yeah.
The two most predominant ways to win a boxing match are by knockout or decision. Decision means that the judges around the ring have determined that you were able to land more punches without being hit, which is the real science of boxing.
Yeah.
It's not to knock somebody out. It's to be able to punch without being punched. Okay? MMA, there are two predominant ways to win an MMA fight. That is by submission or knockout. Very simple. If you paid your money to see either a boxing fight or an MMA fight, and the two competitors, the bell rang and they weren't trying to do either one of those things to win, would you pay to see them again?
I mean, it would seem like no.
Okay. Why is wrestling different?
I don't know. I that's why I'm wondering. So, I'm with you a little bit.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not at all. And the real psychology of wrestling is quite simple. If it were real, and that's what I say to people all the time, and we know it's not, meaning it's not an actual competitive situation. That's the only thing that's fake about wrestling. Trust me. All the holds, things like that, all the bumps, they're real. Okay. All I'm asking a performer to do, I don't care what you do. You could ask the guys here. I don't care what they do. I don't care how much they do. You can throw a bag of cats on your opponent. Don't care.
Okay.
All right. But never make me ask, why did you do that? Within the context of a competitive situation, why did you just do that? You can do anything. That's the magic of wrestling. You can make people believe anything, and you can do it. You can do anything, as long as you always keep the idea that you're doing it for the purpose of trying to beat the person. Unless you emotionally have some other reason to do it. Case in point, hey, dive your happy ass off. I do not care. I used to do shit that you ain't going to do, okay? There ain't nothing you ain't done that I ain't done already or had it done to me, okay. Right? Think of something new that I haven't seen. Congratulations. All I'm asking you to do is, if it were real, There, quite honestly, if you ask yourself, there are only two reasons you would ever take the risk in a competitive match where you, as a prize fighter, if you win, you get paid and you can afford to eat. If you lose, you don't get any money. Got it? Because that's the concept we're selling.
Yeah.
Okay? So if that's the case, how likely would you be to throw yourself out through the ropes or over the top rope on another person? The only two reasons you'd ever do that is either you're desperate enough to do it or you're angry enough to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, feel free. Set your ass on fire and do it. I don't care. But give me that understanding of why you did it. Because you're not selling me the why. You're just trying to sell me the what you did. And you think the what you did is going to get over, and it never does.
Do you think
Same with if you're a heel. Your only reason you're ever going to break a rule directly in front of the referee, if he actually really had the authority to disqualify you, which means you don't get paid.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pay attention. You're a prize fighter. That's what we're selling. So now I'm going to break a rule directly, blatantly in front of the referee. There are only two reasons I'd ever do that. Either I'm angry enough or I'm desperate enough. As long as you have painted that picture for me, do what you want. But you don't, because you're so focused on just what you do. And I can prove to a fact that that never sells. Want me to explain?
Sure.
Let me go. Okay. Everybody in the United States loves baseball, football, or basketball. Everyone. Why? Because everyone's played it as a child. You've either played football in your backyard with your parents and your family, or you've hit a ball with a baseball bat, or you've dunked a basketball on the driveway. You've done it. You have a physical relationship with what you watch. That's why hockey has a bigger audience in Canada than it does anywhere else, because more people in Canada have played hockey.
Right.
Because it's cold up there all the time.
Right.
It's hot. Canada is like our attic. There's lots of cool stuff up there. We just forget it's all up there.
Right. Excellent analogy.
And we probably should build a wall there because they look like us. They sound like us. They're not us.
Why all of a sudden you hate Canada? We were on such a good talk, and then all of a sudden you just went off to the weeds about how
I don't hate them. I don't hate them.
syrup.
We got our own. We got a space program, so they got syrup.
Okay,
so
got it.
Soccer is bigger all over the entire planet than it is here in the United States.
Right.
Why? Because soccer is played all over the entire planet and has for generations. Soccer is becoming bigger in the United States because more kids are playing it, and now you're building an audience. That's why the World Cup is significant now. You know what the three biggest televised events are in the world?
I'm going to guess one of them's the World Cup. The other is the Super Bowl, and then I don't know.
Not even close.
No?
The World Cup of soccer is number one.
Right.
Number two, World Cup of cricket.
Really? Okay.
Number three, the World Cup of rugby.
Okay.
You know why? Because there are more people that live on the rest of this planet than do in just this country.
Yeah.
We are so arrogant that we believe that the Super Bowl is the number one rated because, hey, we love it. Nobody else could care because nobody else plays American style football.
Right.
Just us. That's it.
Yeah.
Same goes for wrestling. If you've never stepped in a wrestling ring, there are only 7 things we do physically that you could ever possibly relate to. Other than that, you ask anybody, they'll tell you that ring's a mattress or a trampoline, and God knows it's anything but.
Right.
Okay? That's why I take exception with when performers will do unsafe things, like bump a guy on the ring apron or throw him backwards in a bump that he can't control into the turnbuckle. Why? How are you getting more out of that? Because the general audience doesn't realize that turnbuckle really does hurt. It's really actually made of steel and could potentially injure this guy. Nobody knows that ring apron is the most dangerous place on that ring. And that's the one place you want to avoid like the plague. So you throwing the person on it isn't going to make people think, oh my God, he got hurt worse, especially when your opponent 30 seconds later stands up and acts like nothing ever happened.
What do you think about blading and things like that? I mean, you're talking about people that are intentionally hurting themselves to make the show better. I mean, do you think that things like blading or even chair shots to the head, I mean, are those things taboo?
The chair shots to the head shouldn't, we now know. I mean, back in the day, I mean, when I got my first concussion, the most advice I got was, hey, don't fall asleep, you could die.
Right. I've
You
had
know, so
that.
I like tried to stay open. I tried to stay awake for like 3 days.
Right.
You know, I was in a panic every time I'd start to nod off. So we know more now. You know, as far as blading is concerned, that's, you know, you're not really hurting yourself as much as you're just, I don't know how to explain it, but blood sometimes can help to increase the drama of some situations, and it
Okay.
can make things more personal and can create more emotion. If it's overdone, it's overused, it's poured out, much like anything else. Too much of a good thing is bad.
Okay.
But if you use it intelligently at the right time for the reason, no different than if you're watching a movie and the hero gets wounded, you know, you care more. You get more emotionally connected. And I'm not an advocate for it, but I'm definitely not a person that says that there's never a time that you should not use it. You know,
Okay.
and if there are other options that you could use that can be done correctly without killing the illusion, then by all means you should take those avenues.
So would you
Certainly.
say that for like I hate to cut you off, but like the ring apron bump and things like that, would you say that same where it's like there's a time and a place to do that, you know, once every
No,
moon?
no, there's not. No,
Okay.
no, it's
Okay.
not.
Different.
Here's why. You
Okay.
don't know the ring apron is actually as hard as concrete compared to the rest of the ring.
Right.
Because have you ever been up there? Because if you've never been up on the ring, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the difference between blading, okay, and taking a bump on the ring apron. The blading is just a cut. It's a scratch. Even if you gig it hard, you're gonna hit a bunch of blood vessels and you're gonna bleed a lot. But you're not permanently for the rest of your life taking a risk that you're now going to suffer a life-altering injury from that.
Yeah.
You take a bump on the ring apron, you hit that wrong, it is the most unforgiving thing you could ever strike. It has no give, and it's at a nice, sharp angle that if it catches your spine just right, can sever it.
Yeah. I had
And
a
you're doing it to get what out of it? What more out of the audience? The audience doesn't realize how truly severely it could potentially hurt you because they've never been in the ring. And if you could explain to me how they can, go ahead, go do it.
How do you feel about Darby Allin's coffin drop? That was a move that somebody kind of went into me about.
I honestly don't. I think for him, it's a short-sighted thing. And the first time I ever saw it, I thought he's an idiot because, again, and granted, look at the stupid stuff I did. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I can't judge somebody. I did a lot of stuff, took a lot of risks, and I'm paying the price now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in pain every single day of my life. I really am. I mean, a dramatically amount of pain, not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I hurt all the time. Sometimes I hurt so bad that it's so oppressive. Sometimes I have to lay down to take a nap because it wears me out.
Sorry to hear that.
It's my choice.
Yeah.
But why, again, if it gets you more out of the audience, not a temporary reaction, okay? The objective is to try to get a true, genuine emotional reaction and connection that now motivates even more people to want to see you perform.
Mm-hmm.
But how often are you going to be able to do it? Mark Merrow, when he first came to WWE, and back then the rings were they were literally, the whole ring was almost like it was a ring apron.
Yeah.
They were so unforgiving.
Yep, I remember.
Because it was right after the Saturday Night Main Event run, and you know,
they didn't want him to bounce.
Dick Ebersol didn't want the bouncing on TV, and they were like a soundstage.
Yeah.
Mark Merrow came in, you know, and I knew how to do a 450, and I quit doing it. You know why I quit doing it? Because I would spin and have such velocity when I hit with the bat. I had so much impact. My elbows and my wrists were swollen all the time.
Oof.
They were just, oh, it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
So he learned how to do it, and I said, he's like, it's going to be my new finish. I go, man, do not make that your finish. He goes, why? I go, because if you make that your finish, then people are going to pay to see you do it. And if they pay to see you do it, you're going to have to do it every single night. And you're not going to last that long. 6 months later, blew out his knee.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying that could happen with Darby as well, because again, a lot of people don't understand. Like, I mean, somebody really went into me on this recently in a call or talk about, like, you know, you're taking a back bump from the top rope, like that's dangerous every time, and then you see him do it.
It is. It is, but if you're taking a back bump into the ring has a certain amount of flex. And the
Right.
more you are able to distribute the impact of that back bump over your back, your hips, and your feet, and hit as flat as a board, the more you're allowing that flex of the ring to absorb that impact. And that way you hurt, but you don't get injured.
Right.
If you're doing that to the floor has even less flex. If
Right.
you're doing it to the ring apron, not only does it have less flex, but there's a sharp edge there that could potentially break either your arm, your forearm, your wrist, your shoulder, or your back, or
Yeah.
your neck.
Because he has
And
taken
you're getting,
that bump. He's taken that coffin drop onto the ring apron. That's exactly what's
yeah, he has. Yeah. And then what did he do right afterwards? Because again, do what you want, okay? But just don't bury your own shit.
Yeah.
You just took a move that we all go, oh my God, he's dead. And then you just got up and you had more offense.
Yeah.
Well, then what was the purpose of you doing it? You just wasted it.
Yeah. Man.
If you're going to take a risk, do two things for me. One, get the absolute most you can out of it emotionally, then sell it and put it over. If it made you look like you were near death, then sell it like you're near death. If people expect you to be near death, be near death. Don't act like it didn't matter, because now everything else doesn't matter. And not just in your match, because it doesn't live in a bubble. Now nothing else matters on the whole show.
Yeah.
It's all inconsequential. And now next time you fell from the top of the rope to the ring apron. Now I want to see you do it again. I want to see you do it bigger.
That's when it gets dangerous, right?
Well, no, it's dangerous from the start, but now every time exponentially, that odds of you getting hurt or injured to where you're crippled and can't continue to wrestle goes up.
Yeah.
And what did you get for it? What kind of reaction? What kind of emotional connection? Because they're going to not remember it. They're going to move on to the next thing that they think that's spectacular, because it wasn't you and the why you did it. It was the move itself that got over.
Yeah. All right. Well, last thing out here.
And listen, it's just advice. It's just advice to anybody that's listening.
Sure.
You know, if you're smart enough, I don't need to tell you. If you're dumb enough, you ain't going to listen. And you can do anything you want to in yourself in the ring. I can't feel nothing backstage. I'll stand here and watch you. And in fact, I will laugh at you if you get hurt. Not because I don't care, because I think you just didn't listen to me. Yeah, I want you to be able to have as long and as successful a career as possible. And if you're going to really, much like with blading, you're going to do something, I want you to do it for the right reason at the right time to get the absolute most emotional response out of it, so that you can now be more of an attraction and draw more money for years to come. Not you just do it for a momentary, oh my God, or a holy shit chant. I want you to actually get people to stand up and go, oh my God, is he okay? Is he alive? Is he all right? And genuinely want to climb over the rail and check on you. Not just go, all right, that was cool. Let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But do what you want.
It's a free seminar for everybody out there right now.
Exactly. Go do what you want, man.
You know,
do what you want.
I know people have paid you hundreds of dollars for this information. Last thing,
tens of dollars.
Dozens of dollars. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, I'm sorry. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you about, Al, was the other OVW story right now that has made a lot of noise was the unfortunate one that came out about Cornette. I mean, this is your company here. Obviously, these are, you know, stories and allegations that, I mean, you weren't running the place, you know.
No, I wasn't even involved, you know. And all I can tell you is this. Look, what if I don't judge anybody for anything. I really don't. And as long as everything is consensual and there's no victimization of anyone, you guys go do what you want to do on your time.
Right.
As long as it happens on your time. I can do this. I can attest to, I personally have never seen Cornette try to hold anyone back in any way, in any manner. Now, maybe because I just didn't see it. Right. I'm not saying, I don't know if it happened, but I could say that I've never seen or experienced or witnessed anything like that.
Yeah.
How can I say this? I'm very proud of people that speak up, and I think that they should. But then you also have to go through the due process. You have to go through due diligence. You know what I mean? That it's almost become a little bit of a witch hunt where somebody can come and say an allegation, and then everybody just, the cancel culture kicks in, and it's, well, it has to be true. So, let's, you gotta just take this extreme action. It's like, well, okay, I will if it's warranted, but I have to do due diligence, and I have to do the proper investigation. You know what I mean? There's I've experienced personally false claims. I've seen other people that have. I've seen people's lives be ruined. Um, you know, I can give numbers of examples and stories. Or just since I've taken over, there was an incident with a person that literally created. I had to go and get a computer expert to track down the IP address because a person here had created a false email account to email themselves threats by another person to try to get them kicked out. And if I had not taken the due diligence to trace that back, I could have literally ruined an innocent person's life.
Yeah.
Or not ruined it, but they wouldn't be here anymore. I would have just taken one side of the coin and just went, well, you got to go.
Yeah.
But I had to go through the due diligence of making sure, and found out that it wasn't the case. It's not a black and white issue. I mean, it's very tough, but those people, like, I can't emphasize enough that I can't do anything about what has happened before.
Yeah.
With OVW, I can't. But I can tell you right now, I do not in any way tolerate any type of unprofessional behavior in any way here now.
Yeah.
And I've tried to make that clear to everyone,
Right.
that I will not. I've gone to the point where I haven't mentioned it to the talent, but because I didn't want to bring it up because I don't want people to think anything ahead of it. But I have an independent, legal investigation investigator that goes out independently from me to go out and determine if any accusations, allegations come up, then I'll check into it, and I'll have a complete independent person to go do it too, and then take the action. And I will make sure that, if somebody has acted in an unprofessional way, I'm not going to tolerate that.
Yeah.
I broke into this business back in the day when, people, it was completely normal for them to basically physically, emotionally, and mentally torture you 24 hours a day. But they did it for their own entertainment, and they did it to see if they could crack you, and I made a vow I would never do that to someone else. And I will never allow for that to happen here.
It's got to be wild for you, Al. I mean, because what you just described to me is what's been described to me from other people as well about what the earlier days of the business were, at least, in the past 30
Yeah.
years. I
It
mean,
was a hard business. It was let me tell you, as an 18-year-old kid, it was a hard business. I mean, it really was. And you learn not to, one of the number one rules in wrestling, or in life, was not to sell, because it basically made you a target. Because if they realized they could, bully you, then it made it worse, because then other guys would jump on, and it was like sharks in the water. They smelled blood.
yeah.
But there's no place in it. If you can't behave in every form and every manner as a professional in professional wrestling, then go find another place to be, because you're not going to be here. I'll tell you that. In no way, shape, or form.
It's very heartening. I mean, the business does seem to be evolving in those areas, especially like really quickly right now. So, I mean, it's got to be wild just to be inside.
I've always treated everyone that way.
Yeah.
That's nothing new. I mean, I don't like to talk about it. And the reason I don't like to talk about it is because I've always been taught that if you got to go out and tell somebody something that you are, then you clearly aren't. You know what I mean? If you walk in a bar and there's a guy telling everybody how tough he is, apparently he's not that tough, or else you wouldn't need to tell nobody.
Yeah.
So if I have to tell people that I treat people fairly and with respect, and try to make it a professional environment, then apparently I must not be doing it, because I got to go and tell people. I mean, I have every confidence. I have a reputation for 38 years. You can go ask anybody for up and down the ladder. There are going to be some that are going to not like me, and, are probably going to tell you stories. But if there's anybody out there that doesn't have some kind of enemy at some point, then they've obviously not stood for anything. So
it's a very good point. All right, I'll take it. I'll lighten it up here with one last thing.
Sure.
I know you and who's now known as Robert Stone, but you and Robbie E, I know,
Yeah.
work together a lot. I was
Yeah.
with you guys at GCW or GLCW, and I've spent time with you guys. What's it like for you getting to watch him finally get this moment on a big stage at WWE?
I think I couldn't be happier for him. You know, I think Robbie really, and I'm not going to say this to him, but you know, Robbie's a really talented guy. I mean, he knows how to work. You know, he gets it. He knows how to work. He is a worker, and Robbie is very underrated, and I think he's underappreciated as really a worker in the wrestling business. You know,
Yeah.
he listens. He goes and he talks to older guys, and he doesn't shut them down. He actually listens to their advice, and you know, he's not out there just trying to be the next hot thing or get that critical acclaim or that pat on the back. He's trying to make himself into an attraction. Another guy too is Spud, Drake Maverick.
Yeah.
You know, same guy. It's the same thing. Smart. You know, he gets it. You know, look at what he did. I mean, he for a shoot legitimately was getting released. You
Yeah.
know, and then he went and spun it into an angle where he ended up getting himself hired back. You know, smart.
Weren't you
And he's made himself even more of an attraction now and more valuable when he does get released because he's done that.
Weren't you his judge in British Boot Camp and Impact, or am I misremembering that?
I wasn't I was a part of it, and I recommended him being the guy that won. Yeah.
Okay, got it. I knew there was a connection there. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Crazy how all these things are starting to just kind of like figure eight into one another these days, Al.
I've been around long enough. I've been a part of everyone at some point.
Well, Al, I want to thank you so much for the time. I'd love to catch up with you down the road again.
Yeah, certainly.
It's great what you guys are doing at OVW right now. I'm happy to hear about the extra distribution and the platform for the guys. Is there anything else that you want to plug, promote, put over here before we wrap up the chat today?
Just if anybody wants any information, they go to ovwrestling.com or aswa.live for the school. They can follow me on Twitter at The Real Al Snow on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. There were some fakes. One just recently, and I messaged him, went, man, if you're going to fake being a celebrity, why lower the bar that far? Just aim it higher.
Attainable.
I mean, come on.
Attainable.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I'm Al Snow. That's an attainable fake right there.
That's very attainable. I mean, be Brad Pitt or George Clooney, somebody like that. Get over. You know what I mean? Don't be me. So
you're like, hey, you know what? What's your gig? You're an ice cream guy. Maybe you can be Al Snow now. I want to be the ice cream guy.
Yeah, I want to be the ice cream. We'll switch places. Trust me, I would love that. Ever since I became the boss, I hate this job. I hate being in charge. I'm held responsible for things that didn't happen years before I even got here.
That's what I asked you about Cornette. 'Cause I was like, look, the guy owns OVW. OVW's name has been thrown around in some ridiculous right recently.
When that all hit, I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 that I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't even here. Like, not only did I not own it, I wasn't even around physically. Like, one of them happened in England 2 years with this couple before they even came here. And like now somehow I'm held responsible for it. I'm like,
yeah. Well,
what?
There you go. Well, now it's out there. So anyway,
I hate being the boss.